Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we are excited that you guys are along for the ride with us today as we dive into 9 ways to increase revenue with strategic content. If you've been with us before, you know we talk a lot about content marketing, and we're one of the firms that has really pioneered content marketing within the travel space, destination marketing space. I'm going to share a lot of what has made us successful with you on today's webinar, both with our own content that has helped so many of you find us, but also with the content we create on behalf of our customers. I want to share some real data with you, some real success stories today, with the hopes that you can apply some of what you learn into your own content marketing efforts to increase your revenue. So great topic, lots to dive into. Appreciate you being along for the ride with us. If this is your first time with us, I know we had several first-time attendees register for today's webinar. We're glad you're here. Just a brief little bit about us. Q4Launch is a hospitality marketing agency headquartered in Charleston, South Carolina. We work with vacation rentals, boutique hotels, bed and breakfast, small resorts, destinations from Singapore to Maui, and just about everywhere in between. We have a staff of 45, all work out of or the majority of which work out of our office here in Charleston, South Carolina, and we would love for you to come by if you're ever in our beautiful city. We do represent many properties, destinations, focus exclusively on the lodging side. So what we're going to share with you today is real life examples, like I said, real customer stories, hopefully that are very applicable to you as you're working on putting things into place for your companies. My contact information is there on the screen. We will also be sending a copy of the recording out. I do talk pretty fast, although we're headquartered in Charleston. I'm not a true Southern boy. So we talk pretty fast, I talk pretty fast, and try to get you a ton of information packed into our hour we're going to spend together here. So if you need any more information, have questions, please do get in touch with me. My contact information is on the screen, or rewatch the recording if you want to circle back and try to remind yourself of something that I said, or share it with somebody else on your team or somebody else you might know that benefit from the information. All right, with that, one last piece of housekeeping. We will use our chat panel today for questions and answers. So I do my best to take questions throughout if I can, but if I don't get to it during the session, please do pop it in there, and we'll have some dedicated time at the end of our time together to jump back to those questions. So drop them in there as you have them so you don't forget about them. We'll try to get those questions answered for you. Make sure you stick around till the very end of our webinar and have a really cool next step for you to take if you're trying to figure out how to apply this. So stick around to the very end to make sure you get access to that. All right, so why does content even matter, right? That's a question I think a lot of people ask when they're doing it, or they're looking at content marketing, hearing about it, and maybe not quite doing it right. I would say the biggest reason it matters is that throughout all of Google's changes, the one constant is that great content has always been rewarded. So you might have heard me say this on webinars, or maybe you've heard me speak at a conference, but through penguin, pigeon, can't talk today, penguin, pigeon, panda, all those fuzzy P animals that we've come to name Google's algorithm changes around, the one constant is good quality content creation will win the SEO battle over a period of time. And we have proven that to be true in a lot of the markets we work with by unseating some of the historic major players in a marketplace through a content creation strategy. But that's got to be done well. It's got to be done consistently on a great platform. And you'll be rewarded in the search engines by more traffic, more leads, and more bookings. Now, each of those things is its own strategy. We're going to touch on each of those three things today as we look at them. But just more traffic isn't going to get you where you need to be. You really have to understand the conversion path that this traffic goes on, and understand by approaching content marketing in this manner, you're basically widening the top of your sales funnel. You're saying we're going to expand the top of your sales funnel to get more traffic, and then we have to have a path for them to go down that sales funnel. We're going to share some examples on how to do that today. Maybe I won't get too much ahead of myself, but we'll dive into how to do that and why that matters, and how we need to think about these people a little bit differently based off where they're coming into our website, how they're entering our website, what they were searching for that got them there in the first place. We'll give you a lot of that guidance to apply throughout our time together, and part of our nine tips. All right, so let's dive in. Here's a quick outline of what we're going to be talking about. 9 ways to increase revenue with strategic content. First, have a plan. Second, use a professional writer. Third, provide answers or solutions for travelers. Google's very focused on who is giving the best answer to this question. Be consistent, use long tail keywords, connect your content into sales offers. Should you consider ads, right at a 10th grade level, and calls to action and how to use them. So we're going to try to cover all of that over about the next 40 minutes and leave some time for Q&A. So that's our outline. Jot that down, take a screenshot, put it off to the side, whatever you want to do. We're going to dive into those 9 things right now with a bit of a ferocious pace here. So have a plan. Benjamin Franklin's famous for saying, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And where I would say the number one reason we see content marketing strategies fail with people that have tried to execute them on their own is they fail to have a plan. Or maybe we're talking to somebody and they're with an existing agency and their strategy is failing and they're not sure why. And we ask questions around planning and they have failed to plan, so they are planning to fail. So maybe you've tried to launch a content marketing effort in the past and you're wondering, can it really be done? Can it really work? Can it really generate revenue for us? And I would say the answer to all of those questions is yes, 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 but you have to have a plan. You have to start with that plan, and your success is only going to be as good as the plan you started with in the beginning. One of the things we implemented a long time ago on this journey was developing quarterly marketing strategies for all of our customers. A little screenshot of one is actually there on the right. You probably can't read all the things it says, but that's not the point. But we sit down at the beginning of the quarter, really ideally before the quarter begins, if our customers are available, that's when we want to have those conversations, and review the plan for the quarter. We look at what are people searching for? What are the emotions that are driving activity during this time of year? What festivals, holidays, specials, events, what's going on in the quarter that we can market around to drive traffic? All that coming from an understanding of booking windows and what drives activity around particular things. All that goes into our quarterly marketing strategies that we do for our customers. What our customers have told us is they love this part of our process because it drives a ton of transparency and a ton of accountability to understand what we're going to be working on. So we lay those things out and they can follow along. Maybe there's multiple owners in the company. Maybe there's a large staff. Everybody can have a copy of that document and follow along. Some of our vacation rental managers actually will send that on to their homeowners just as a way for them to be able to say, this is what we're doing for you. And that's great. We encourage that activity as well because it's just another homeowner retention strategy if you're in that space. So lots of ways you can use this plan, but you have to have the plan in the first place. And if maybe you have a relationship with an agency right now and you're not doing planning like this, and this isn't the only planning you need to do, it's kind of that high-level quarterly planning that we're going to do, or mid-level quarterly planning that you're going to do. You're still having those daily, weekly conversations about the execution of the plan, but you have your plan in place and you're working on something and everybody's aligned around that plan. So as you're doing that, you're trying to create content around keywords people are actually searching for, right? That's the first thing. We have to create content people are actually searching for. One of the biggest mistakes we see people making is they're creating content, but it's not about something that anybody's searching for. So they're wondering why they're not getting any traffic. So maybe they got ranked, but there's no traffic because no one's actually searching for it. Or maybe someone is searching for it, but it didn't get ranked, so that's why they're getting no traffic. But you've got to start with a plan about creating content people are actually searching for. And as you think about that, and you're going to hear that message several times today, kind of it relates to the various topics, but as you're thinking about that, think about what guests are asking about. If guests are asking you that question, either on the phone or at check-in or during their stay, they're asking Google that question 1,000-fold. So I would we encourage our customers and people we talk to, especially if you have a reservations team, to give them a pad of paper. And when a customer asks a question, have them write it down. Because the number one thing we hear about people struggling with launching content marketing strategies is, what do I write about? Like, we get that question every time I speak on the subject at conferences. I get that question. Well, what do I write about? Hopefully we're going to solve a little bit of that for you today. But I would start with, at the bare minimum, have your reservations team write down those things people are asking them, and that's what you should write about. Like, that's not super scientific, it's not super complicated, but it works. And write about those things. And as you're doing that, create a written quarterly marketing or content calendar. Maybe you have somebody on your team that you're tasking this to, but they need some guidance. They need to know where to start. Create this quarterly calendar and direct them in that way. Maybe you have an agency. If you do, they should be creating something like this for you. If they're not, maybe your next step is create this for them and tell them how to do their job and see if they take that next step. If they don't, then that's an even worse place. But you shouldn't have to tell them how to do their job, but maybe you do. Maybe that's your next step. But have a plan and execute against that plan very, very, very well, while at the same time being flexible with your plan. One of the best things you can do from a content strategy is to take advantage, to do what's often referred to as newsjacking, which is essentially where you attach to breaking news in your industry and try to play off of that to drive traffic. Can work very, very well if what you're newsjacking is relevant to you. So awesome opportunity to disrupt your plan because breaking news happens. Now you have to do that well, right? And be tasteful in how you're doing that. There are definitely ways you can do that poorly. We had a conversation with a customer this week about a newsjacking opportunity. We just said, hey, this is going on in your marketplace. We noticed, we don't think this is a good place to do newsjacking. We would not recommend it in this case, and there's various reasons why we wouldn't have recommended it. We wanted to create the conversation and then help them understand why we wouldn't recommend it, because we didn't want them to come back 3 months later and be like, hey, we missed an opportunity here, and we didn't want to miss an opportunity. So we wanted to open the dialogue, have the conversation, which we did, and agreed with their marketing director not to take that opportunity. So understanding when to and when not to is an important part of that opportunity as well. But have a plan, don't plan to fail, and start with having a really strong foundation with your planning process. And if that's something we can help with, please do reach out. We'd be happy to kind of guide you through our process of what that looks like. And that process, that planning process, is going to be one of the things that we would help you take some next steps on, and the next step call to action that we're going to have for you at the end of our webinar today. So stay tuned for that. Number 2, use a professional writer. So there's a few stock images in our presentation today. This is not actually one. This is our content team. So we employ professionally trained journalists in our office every day. We have a staff of 12, I think maybe 9 of which are pictured in that picture. But they literally sit outside my office. I know some of you have visited our offices and met many of them. But it's so important to have a professional writer, and we're going to talk to you about a few of the reasons why. One, ask yourself, is writing a gift of mine? Maybe it is, and you love to write, and that's awesome. So if the answer to that is yes, awesome, you passed that one. Do I have SEO training, or am I willing to really roll up my sleeves and learn? That might disqualify a lot of you that have a gift for writing. And some of you may still be saying yes. And this one's not on the screen, but the next question I'd ask you is that the best use of your time? So you said yes to the gift. You said yes to I have the training. Is it the best use of your time? Maybe not. As a business owner or marketing director or general manager, I know we have a lot of those different roles on the call with us today, you have a lot of hats you have to wear. There's a lot of things demanding your time. Is this the best use of your time? And I think the data can help you answer that as well. We had a customer, a prospective customer that's now a customer, and they loved to write. They said yes to the first one. They weren't so sure about the second one, but they did feel like it was the best use of their time. So let's look at the data. And what we found was they had great, beautifully written, very informative blogs, but they didn't know how to do the SEO piece, so no one was reading them. So they were putting all this time, energy, effort into the content that no one was reading. And that's the worst place to be. You have this beautiful content that no one's reading, and that's a problem. So you really have to understand what goes into it. One of the biggest pieces is that professional writers are experts at creating content that ranks and converts. We talked about that, but you're really going to take that next step as somebody who does that for a living and knows what it takes to make that work versus trying to do that on your own. And that's one of the biggest things we can do to take content as a content strategy and take it to that place that it's actually generating revenue for you, is take it up a notch from who's executing that strategy. And more, Google ranks well-written content that users will read. They're measuring how people are interacting with your content, and your rankings will go up or down based off of how people interact with it. So if you have content, Google ranks it, and they see that people are not interacting with it well, they're going to start dropping you from the ranking, because it's an indicator to them that people don't like what you wrote, so people are leaving. Make sure you're not keyword stuffing. So that's an old school technique we still see a lot of people trying to use. Don't do it. It will definitely hurt you. And then lean on the data. And this is what I'm trying to make with this last point here. We write over 500 blogs or pieces of content every month as a team. That's why we got 12 full-time writers on our staff. So as we're doing that, we're studying the performance of those and making adjustments going forward. So we have a massive amount of data on what's ranking and what is Google looking for when we're creating content. And as such, we have a lot of data to influence the training, the approach, everything that we're doing from a content perspective. So the content we create today is dramatically different than the content we created a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because we're studying that data. We're looking for what Google's doing, what they're ranking, how that content's converting, and creating a strategy accordingly. So having that base of data gives us a tremendous advantage when we're trying to create content versus maybe you can check all those boxes and you're an analytics expert, so you know how to analyze how your content's performing, but you only have yours. Like, you only have your data. You don't have a macro level data to compare your performance to. So it's hard to figure out if it's not working, why is it not working? And again, that's something we can help you with as part of our next step after today's webinar. So a couple opportunities. If you're stuck in that place, maybe you're creating the content, but it's not performing and you don't know why, or you have no idea if it's performing, we can help you figure those things out. So moving right along, number 3, provide answers and solutions for travelers. I talked about this. More and more, Google's wrapping their algorithm around what is the best answer for the user. And that's a really important thing. It's a really important thing to understand and question to ask, because it changes some of the ways you write. And that's why keyword stuffing doesn't really work anymore, because that's not the best answer. Just something stuffed with keyword doesn't really work anymore for you. They want content to be helpful. They want to provide the best answer to the user, which is also why, as I just spoke about, they're looking at the way people interact with your content and using that behavior data to either increase or decrease the ranking of a particular piece of content. So all of that's going into, how do I give the best answer to my user for that search query? That's what Google's trying to do. So what do people ask when they check in? We talked about that, and being able to how to use that information to provide answers and solutions for travelers, ideally before they check in, right? Because if they're asking that at check-in, chances are there's a lot of people asking that question further back in the sales process or the booking process. So they're Googling that when they're at home planning their trip, and that's when we want to get found. That's when we want to establish our brand presence with them. That's when we want to intersect them before they get to the OTAs. And it helps us establish ourselves as the local expert. And this is a really difficult one to measure, but I'm going to touch on it. But one of the ways we know this works, it's establishing your business as a local expert, is when we launch a content marketing strategy with a customer, typically the year after that really takes off. So it takes a little bit. We're going to talk about how long that takes to take off in a few minutes. But as it starts taking off, the year after, we typically will see branded search traffic, so people searching for the company's brand name, increase by on average 30%. It's very rare for a brand to increase their branded search traffic by 30% in a year unless something is significant is happening. And in most cases, we can connect it back directly to our local expert status with our traffic, or with our content creation strategy that's resulting in traffic that's increasing brand awareness and making more people search for for the brand name that they're going after, or branded search. Also a great way to attract more homeowners. You know, if you're in the vacation rental space and you're thinking about your homeowners come into market and they're searching for things to do in your area, if they're not with you and your blog keeps popping up every time they're searching for something to do in your area, that's a great way to attract those homeowners, because every time they turn around, every time they search something, they're finding you. You won't necessarily be able to correlate that directly and say, I decided to list my house with you because I searched for the best restaurant and the best hiking trail and the best boat rental and kept finding you, so I decided to list with you. No, they're not going to tell you it quite like that. But the same is true as far as retaining homeowners. If they keep searching stuff and they keep finding you, they're going to do that. If they keep searching stuff and they keep finding your competitor, that might open a door for your competitor. So you've got to think about that stuff. But provide answers to questions people are asking Google. So refer back to step 1. It all comes back to being able to do our research, understand what people are searching for, and develop that plan. It's so important. There's an example. We're going to share a couple examples here with you, but one over there on the right, the best 30A beaches, right? Very targeted for one of our, actually 2 of our vacation rental managers in the 30A area. So you search that, and you can go do this on your own. The first thing that came up for us when I grabbed the screenshot, which was just this morning, we always try to have current data as possible, was a paid ad. So you see that ad tag on it. The next thing was a vacational company that we do blogging for, which we wrote a blog, 5 of the best 30A beaches for families. So we were really targeting that, and their customer experience manager and content creator decided that was what they wanted to target around that keyword. And then actually another customer of ours who had joined us more recently. So they were a newer customer. So they were actually in the 2nd position instead of the 1st position, but we wrote a blog for them. Here are 3 of the best 30A beaches. So 2 customers ranked 1 and 2, both because we understand how to create content. Both of their customer experience managers did their research, came to the conclusion that was a good keyword to go after. They're both getting traffic for it and ranked positions 1 and 2. And of course, Google's moving that around all the time. But then that graphic below it shows you traffic year to date for that blog post. That one blog post has generated 1,910 sessions year to date for this particular customer. So think about that. If someone is searching for that, there's a good chance they're planning a trip to the 30A area. And if they're looking for that, there's a good chance they consider booking a vacation rental or a hotel or a B&B. The type of accommodation really depends on the size of the group they're coming with, is usually what's making that decision. But regardless of which vertical, that's a very targeted keyword for somebody planning a trip to the 30A area. And we've put that customer in front of 1,910 travelers planning their trip to the 30A area and searching that keyword just this year through that one blog we wrote. So you start to see how providing answers and solutions for travelers can really help us. Now we've got to connect that in and get them to move down a conversion path, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. Here's another example from one of our customers, the Stanton House Inn, a little boutique hotel in Connecticut. The keyword beaches near Greenwich, Connecticut. We were actually ranked number 3 for this keyword. Both these, the sites ranking above us were the actual town's website. Always hard to beat the actual town for stuff like this. But here's the information we put together around that and how it performed for us. So that keyword, I think we're looking at about, this is their entire, this is just that one keyword. I thought this was their entire blog when I saw the numbers. But that one blog in the first 6 months of the year generated 3,705 organic visits to our website, 4,000 total visits to our website. So we picked up some visits from social media, maybe email marketing there as well. But 3,700 people planning a trip to Greenwich, Connecticut found the Stanton House Inn because they searched beaches near Greenwich, Connecticut. So we know they're going to Greenwich, Connecticut. We've got that because beach is near. We have the city name there. An awesome opportunity to be able to bring that in. So tip number 4, I said we're going to move pretty quick. Be consistent. One of the questions I get at conferences a lot is like, Matt, you just taught us a ton of stuff. I'm totally overwhelmed. But what's the one thing? What's the one secret to being successful at marketing? And that's this: be consistent. I know a lot of times people are looking for some rocket science answer there, and I come back with be consistent, and I can just see the disappointment on their face. They're like, wow, I thought after listening to you for an hour, you were actually kind of smart, and now I'm disappointed because your secret sauce is be consistent. But I will tell you I'm getting old, but the 15 years I've been doing digital marketing, the hardest thing to do with digital marketing is be consistent. The hardest thing for me to do is produce and write and teach 2 webinars a month. It's just flat hard. It's a lot of content that I produce, but I know how valuable it is with people that subscribe and that follow a webinar series. So we continue to do it. So it's consistency, right? Google wants to see the same thing. Google wants to see consistent content created from you. This is a real screenshot that I pulled this morning of a customer of ours. They've been with us for 2 years. And to kind of put that in perspective, I don't know if you can see the numbers on the left, but this is monthly traffic, and that number on the left is 10,000 visits. So their peak month, they got 10,000 visits to their blog by being consistent. But what you're looking at is what happens over time. The first 3 to 6 months, we see very little results, very little results. In the second 6 months, it starts to pick up and take off. And in the second year, it gets stronger, stronger. What this customer will see is that in their third year, it will get stronger and stronger. In their first year with us, and this is a bit of an extreme story, but in their first year with us, we were able to grow their blog following from 0 to 11,000 visits. So they were blogging before this, but they were one of those people that was blogging and getting 0 results. So we took them from 0 or roughly 0 to 11,000 visits in their first year. In the second year, we went from 11,000 visits to 44,980 some. I remember laughing when I saw it. I was like, gosh, could that not just be 45,000? It was 10 clicks away. But the point being, it happens over a period of time. It took consistent content creation, and we write 2 blogs a week for them. So we're creating a lot of content for them. But it takes that kind of consistency to really get where we're trying to go. And the majority of people will start, they'll put a focused effort on it for somewhere between 1 week and 3 months. That's usually what we see when people try to do it on their own. And at some point in that, they will either get busy doing something else, or they'll get frustrated with the lack of results and they will quit. And I'm convinced Google knows that because it's magic. I tell you, every time we see it, 0 to 3 months, we see almost 0 results. 3 to 6 months, it starts really taking off. And that second 6 months, it starts to hockey stick a little bit. You don't see a hockey stick here as much, although you do actually in the month of December because they had a blog go viral in that month. But typically when you tighten that date range, you'll see more of a dramatic graph. This graph looks a little bit less dramatic because it's over a 2-year period. But as you're working on that, you've really got to focus on the depth of content as well, because it allows you to then take other parts of your site and bring them into your strategy and link to other parts of your website, other pages within your site. Take somebody who's landing on your blog and then driving them into other parts of your site. A site like Wikipedia has links all over that site. So it's just kind of that web approach. I mean, that's why it got the name, the web, so that you can get to all these different parts of the site as you're navigating around and using content to be able to do that and do that well. Can be very, very effective. So we would recommend weekly or bi-weekly, so either weekly or every other week, depending on your budget, your time, factors like that. If you have multiple business units, so maybe you have a restaurant and a boutique hotel, or a restaurant and a B&B, or a real estate company and a vacation rental company, or a vacation rental company that's operating in multiple locations, you might want to look at expanding that beyond just weekly and get to 2 a week, as in the case that I talked about here. But weekly or bi-weekly can be very effective as well. We see those being very effective. Of course, if you're writing weekly, you're writing 52 blogs a year. If you're writing every other week, you're writing 26 blogs a year. So you can kind of expect that if you write twice as much content, you're going to get twice as many results or twice as much traffic from it. So you kind of have to balance that with how aggressive you want to go. A lot of content marketers encourage people to create new blogs every day. We don't do that. One, I don't think there's enough topics out there to create something every day in the travel space relevant to your destination. Sure, global travel there is, but not within your destination. But 2, I don't think that the return is there from a daily basis. So if you were thinking, oh, should I do this every day? Which you probably weren't. Probably doing this weekly would be a big stretch, but wouldn't necessarily encourage that. All right, number 5, use long tail keywords. So I've shared a couple examples with you of long tail keywords we go after from a blog perspective, but you can use the same strategy in static pages and blogs. So what long tail keywords enable us to do is they narrow our search focus in on a more specific thing. And I'm going to give you a real example here. But why would we want to do that? Is because we're more likely to rank for something with a narrower focus. We reach a more targeted audience, and we're able to provide a more in-depth answer for that focused keyword, i.e. a better answer for what the person is looking for. So we're going after that. And what we know, anytime we're able to reach a more targeted audience, we're going to see conversion rates typically go higher. The broader you're going, the lower your conversion rate's going to be. The more specific you go, the more targeted you go, the higher your conversion rate's going to be, generally speaking. So here's our example. You could go after the term Outer Banks vacation rentals. And maybe that's a keyword you want to go after. And I'm not saying go after one and not the other. Both of these should be parts of your strategy. One of them is a long tail keyword. So Outer Banks vacation rental, not a long tail keyword. That's kind of a traditional SEO keyword. Extremely competitive. Probably one of the most competitive keywords in the vacation rental space. One of the most competitive keywords we work on. And then a long tail variation of that would be Outer Banks vacation rentals with a fenced yard. So our customer is not the #1 search result for Outer Banks vacation rentals. Like, we're just getting outspent by a lot bigger companies in that market. So really, really tough to compete. Companies that have been there a lot longer, spend a lot more money than we do, have a lot more homes than we do. But I can target something like Outer Banks vacation rentals with a fenced yard, and that's a lot less competitive, but it's a very, very targeted user. So we actually have thousands of dollars of conversions tracked from this specific keyword, because we created content around it, connected it with properties that we have that are pet friendly, that have a fenced yard, right? Very specific thing somebody's looking for. And we've gotten bookings from this content. Now, that's one example of probably hundreds or thousands. As you're thinking about that, you've got to make sure your website's set up to support it. One of the things we run into with customers that don't use one of our websites is trying to get their web developer to think like this is really, really hard. Trying to get them to enable us to create landing pages like this can be really, really hard. So you've got to make sure you have a website set up to support it. So that's a really important part of it. But then being able to create that content around this or various other things that are relevant for it. So there's so many variations of these long tail keywords you can go after. It can be very, very successful part of your strategy. All right, number 6, connect to sales opportunities. So we've worked hard, we've brought that traffic in, now we've got to convert it. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. I could spend a ton of time on it, but connect into sales opportunities. If you go look at some of the blogs I've shared with you today, you'll see some of the different ways that we're doing that, both connecting to sales opportunities, but also in creating a conversion path with different calls to action, which is actually one of our other tips we're going to talk about. But once you attract them, you have to convert them. So we wrote this blog about Corolla wild horses, saw a ton of traffic coming into it, and decided to put 3 of our featured houses right within the blog content. So great opportunity to get exposure for houses and get clicks from people searching for this to clicks that are relevant to it, all in that kind of general area, to be able to go check that out. So using that to then take them to the next step. So lots of different ways you can do that. Can't connect with you on all of them today, nor do I know all of them. I'm sure you guys have all thought up different ways of doing that as well. But connect it to the sales opportunity. That's a mistake we see a lot of people making with their content, is that they create content, but they forget to connect it to a sale. Like they don't have a search bar there, their blog looks terrible, the design doesn't match the rest of their website, they have no call to action to go check out properties or check out a room or book a package, any of that information. So you need to have that. You need to make it easy for the person to take the next step on their path. Remember, this person was not searching for a vacation rental. They weren't searching for a hotel. They weren't searching for a bed and breakfast. They were searching for Corolla wild horses and landed on your website. So it's a different journey to get this person to book with you than it is somebody who searches Outer Banks vacation rentals and lands on your website, or who searches best bed and breakfast in Ohio, or searches for most romantic boutique hotels. Like there's, all these different variations. This is different users. You have to understand they're in a different place. And then how do you guide them where you want them to go based off of those things? Number 7, should you consider ads? This was one that I was like, do I include this? Do I not? And I decided to at the last minute. I was trying to get some good screenshots and actually Expedia's site today. I don't know if anybody else tried to use it, but I was having all sorts of issues. So I couldn't get the kind of screenshots I really wanted to get. But it's surprising to me how many conversion-focused sites like Expedia, sites like Amazon, sites like eBay, people that are spending millions of dollars studying conversion behavior actually will serve up ads for sites that aren't their own. In this case, the majority of this screenshot came off an Expedia site, and I would bet all these links actually go to Expedia landing pages. So this is a bit of a different example. I couldn't get what I wanted because the site wasn't working right, or was having some kind of issue. But if you navigate through the web, you'll notice this as well now that I've mentioned it, but how many of these sites that work so hard and spend so much money to drive traffic to their site, get traffic to them, are actually serving up ads for other things that may or may not even be relevant to them. These are all travel ads, so very relevant to an Expedia user. And if they go to another landing page, then it's an example of exactly what I just showed you with this. We've got ads in this blog for these 3 properties. They've got ads for Bahamas, Wyndham, and Cancun within Expedia. So they have their own ad within there. You can use that within your content as well. But what you'll also see is them serving up ads for other people through an ad network like Google AdSense or something like that. And they will actually get paid for having people's ads on their sites. I am not saying that this is right for you, but I'm also not saying it's not right for you. We've never done this for a customer, so I don't have data on it. I wish I did to share with you if it affects things or not. The fact that Amazon, Expedia, and eBay do it makes me think that it's not hurting them, that the value they get from the ads is exceeding the decrease, if there was one, in conversion rate. So as a marketer, that would be my assumption, was putting these ads would decrease my conversion rate. But they've tested it. They're spending a lot more money than we are on conversion rate optimization. So I would bet you they know something there. So this isn't going to be relevant for you if you're getting hundreds of visits to your blog. If you're getting hundreds of visits to your blog, you don't have enough traffic to really make it worth it. But if you're getting thousands of visits to your blog or site, it might be. Like this piece alone, you might add a little bit of AdSense to your site and pay for a significant portion of your marketing strategy or all of your content creation strategy. We have a customer who gets about 500,000 visits a month, and it's something we've talked to them a lot about, because I was like, listen, you could put these ads on your site and you would probably pay for our entire marketing bill for the entire month just off of revenue from these ads. And they're a big company, you know, they're a, I don't know, $50 million company, so they don't really care. But we brought it up because we're like, hey, it's an opportunity to monetize the traffic we've created for you. We've increased their traffic in a big way. They're getting 500,000 visits a month. Probably most of you on this call are getting 500,000 visits a month. You're probably not getting 50,000 visits a month. If you're getting 50,000 visits a month, maybe this is something you look at. If you're getting 10,000 visits a month, maybe you look at it. If you're getting less than that, probably not applicable to you, but an opportunity to get paid for the traffic that you're generating and then reinvest that to drive more business for you. But if you decide to try it, make sure you're watching your conversion rate. Make sure you're working with an agency that actually knows how to do this and test it and pull it back immediately. I would say immediately. Others might disagree, but immediately if you see it negatively impacting your personal conversion rate. Really make sure you're testing that and doing that well. So if you're going to use this part of our strategy or recommendations on how to increase revenue, make sure you're watching it very, very closely and working with somebody that you can pivot very, very quickly if you need to do something different on that strategy. But at the very least, think about having ads for your own products, your own services built into your content. We know that's not going to hurt you. All right, number 8, you heard me talk about this a little bit earlier, but write at a 10th grade level. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence here, but what we found is that we need our content to be easy to read. We have a lot of customers that want their content to be, you know, they think Shakespeare should have read it or written it, or Steinbeck should have written it. We don't need to be that. Honestly, if we try to be that, we probably won't rank as well with Google, because Google's trying to serve up things that work for the population as a whole. Now, you have to make sure your voice matches your brand and who your target customer is. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying don't make it hard to read. In most cases, don't use slang, abbreviations, or poor grammar or poor punctuation. Like, it's just not a good idea. There are some cases where slang can work, especially if you're trying to really accomplish like a local voice. But for the most part, you want to stay away from it. And trying to kind of target that 10th grade level can help you think about not writing in a way that is unattainable for people or makes it hard to read. Even though you know your target customer is not educated at a 10th grade level. We know your target customer is college or beyond for all of our customers and probably most of you. But that doesn't mean we need to write at a PhD level. Even if our customer has a PhD, doesn't mean we should be writing at a PhD level. So targeting that is what we have found to work as most effective. And then use that to be still very engaging. You can write at the 10th grade level-ish while still being very engaging. And if you're struggling with that or don't know how to measure it, the Hemingway app can actually be helpful for you to be able to do that. So something you can check out there. But don't make your content hard to read. Like, that's the takeaway here. Don't think you need to be fancier than you need to be or make it harder on yourself than you should. It will also slow your ability to write and produce good quality content. We're not trying to write a Pulitzer Prize winning piece of content here. We're trying to write content that's going to attract traffic who's planning a trip to our destination and then have a journey and a path for them to convert into bookings. So think about that. Make sure you're doing that and kind of connecting into that well. All right, number 9, use calls to action. This is so important and something we see so many people not doing when they're creating content. And this comes from, in the first place, understanding the booking funnel. So you heard me talk about this kind of throughout our conversation because it weaves itself into so much of what we're doing. But most specifically, as we're creating content that guides them down that conversion or that booking funnel. So understanding that usually our content marketing is making a broader funnel at the top, right? So someone not necessarily searching for Charleston bed and breakfast, but searching for things to do in Charleston, that's up that sales funnel a little bit. There are other examples where they might be further down the sales funnel or more specific, like I shared with our fenced yard example. But for the most part, they're further up the funnel. This is the screenshot on the right. It's actually an example of a sidebar. You'll see sidebars on a lot of the sites that we work on. This one specifically from a beautiful luxury boutique hotel we work with in Keo Island, South Carolina. But the point being, we have to understand that when someone is entering your website, they probably weren't looking for a bed and breakfast, a boutique hotel, a vacation rental, or resort. They were looking for more information of something else to do with your destination. And we have to understand that that user is very, very different than the user that comes into your homepage. When we launch a content marketing strategy, and if you launch your own and you do this well, over a period of time, we start to see on average that about 30% of our customers' traffic enters their website via the blog, meaning that their first experience with your brand is going to be on a blog post. And as such, you really have to understand how that person's different and how to guide them down that path. Calls to action in the sidebar, like I've shown you here on the right, is a very visual way to do that, a very desktop-oriented way to do that. We also know, and mobile traffic is growing in a huge way this year. We've seen some shocking statistics. Google just released some in their Alphabet earnings call earlier this week as well about the rise in mobile and mobile clicks on paid ads. So we're seeing huge growth there. We knew that was coming. It's been happening for years. So we also use a lot of CTAs within our text. So on desktop, this beautiful sidebar works. On mobile, it doesn't. On mobile, we actually slide that sidebar down to the very bottom of the page to get the content up in front of people quicker. So as part of that strategy, we have to have text links within our content to get people where we want them to go. But you have to work those CTAs into your content and understand who the person is. And understand that based off of how much of your content they've read, you probably want to think about a different CTA as well. So guiding that throughout your content and changing your strategy there will help people. And just understand what those big things are for you. Like, what is the start of your booking funnel? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to guide somebody into our booking funnel. So what is it that we see people getting information about that makes them want to come book with us? Well, accommodations, that's obvious, right? We want them to see accommodations. That's typically number one for us at the top of our sidebar. The porch bar, any amenity like that, like major amenity of your property, a destination guide, which is a lead generation opportunity, or actual amenities that differentiate your property from other properties they might be looking at. Being able to guide them into those things that make someone want to come and stay with you. So think about those things. Make it easy to search. What we would say is from your blog, readers should be able to convert as a lead, either not ready to book yet, but have an opportunity for them to convert as a lead, some way you can add value to them. They should be able to search, either search availability, search for properties, search for rooms, view rooms. They should be able to take that next step to look at rooms, which guides them into that booking process as well. So really thinking about those things and understanding how do we do that. And doing that from a great design, but also from text links within your content. And this is such an important part of why when you're using an integrated marketing strategy and content marketing is a piece of that, it's really important to be working with a web developer who knows what the end. Start with the end in mind. You've heard that a million times probably, but that's so true when you're working with a web developer. Most web developers don't think like content marketers, and as such, I've never seen a blog other than ours that actually looks like this, that actually has calls to action in the sidebar, that actually has it set up in a way to get you to convert. It's just, they don't think about it. Usually most web developers use a template for their blogs. It's just a generic whatever because it's an afterthought. Because all the blogs they've seen, nobody's actually reading, so it doesn't matter what it looks like. But when you understand how to create content that's going to get ranked, get found, get traffic, you understand that you then have to design it in a way that's going to convert. So that design is so important. If you're going to try to monetize, drive revenue from your content, which is everything we're talking about today, the design of that blog is so important. If the design of your blog is terrible, do yourself a favor, get that fixed before you start driving all this traffic to it, assuming that you're able to do the content piece and make that work. So lots to go into that to make it all work, but can be very easy. Like, we've built a system that does that very, very efficiently when you know what you're trying to do. So that's a lot of information. I've just been talking for like 45 straight minutes. You think you're overwhelmed, but it's true. Creating great content that readers enjoy, Google will reward, is a ton of hard work. Creating this webinar for you was a ton of hard work, but it's worth it. Hopefully it's helpful for you. Creating content that your readers are going to read and that Google likes is a lot of hard work, but it's worth it. Hopefully it'll pay off for you if you use some of the suggestions we've talked about. You'll become more efficient the more you practice. Let me tell you, probably the first time I did a webinar, it was terrible. Like, I still have recordings of it. And I'm not saying I'm great now, but I'm better than I was then. And it requires SEO, the search engine optimization part of it, if you're going to try to learn it, which we talked about, requires a lot of upfront work, but a piece of content that performs well will continue to do so long term. So all those examples I shared with you today, while their rankings are going to change from time to time, they're going to move up and they're going to move down, over the long term, it will perform really, really well. That's why in that example, when we had 11,000, we had 0, then we had 11,000 visits at the end of our first year, then we had almost 45,000 at the end of our second year. That's because our content's continuing to perform for us. Now we have to go back and update a lot of that, right? It doesn't stay evergreen, meaning it's not always current anymore. So we have to update those things. There's a lot of work going into just maintaining content. But it continues to provide long-term results for us, which is one of the reasons we think it's so valuable. I want to remind you, if you want to drop some questions in the chat panel, please do that. We're going to get to Q&A here in just a minute. If you've enjoyed today's webinar, which I hope that you have, or enjoyed webinars we've done in the past, and you need a speaker for your conference, we know conference season is coming up. We're already starting to get lots of requests for that, but we would love to connect with you in person. So get in touch with us today. My contact information is on the screen. If you're looking for a speaker for your conference, we would love your recommendation, either your conference planning committee or your education committee. Please do throw our name in the hat. We'd be happy to resource you, send you a copy of one of our webinars to share with them. But honestly, of all the things I get to do, that's one of my favorite parts. Going out, meeting with our customers in person, speaking at conferences, and educating people on how to do a better job of marketing, helping to kind of bring their business up to a new level. So selfish ask there, but if you've enjoyed our webinars today or in the past, would love if you'd recommend us for conferences that you're attending. So how is your content serving from an SEO perspective? How much traffic is it bringing? You heard me reference several times throughout kind of that next step opportunity to do a free content evaluation for you. A member of our team will evaluate your content and help you understand how it's performing from an SEO, traffic, and conversion perspective. We'll help you get some actionable steps to take real next steps into that content. It only takes about 15 minutes. If you're listening to the recording today, you can email me. My email address is on the screen. If you're live with us today, we would love if you would just vote in our poll. If you would like, which is now on your screen, if you'd like the free content evaluation, simply click yes. Please get in touch, and we'll schedule some time to review your content, help you understand how it's performing, what next steps you need to be taking, and answer any questions that you might have about us or what we do or anything else. If you don't want us to follow up with you on that, that is totally okay. Simply click no, and we won't follow up with you on that. We do need to get about 70% of people to vote to be able to advance on. We can get the poll closed there. So if we could get a few more people to vote, that would be great. If you stepped away from your computer and you're listening to me from across the room, this would be your call to action to come back to your computer and click yes or no so we can advance our presentation today. But yeah, if we can get 70% of people to vote, that'd be great. Yes, please get in touch, or no, thank you. Or if you just want to know more about what it's like for us to be able to support your team in these efforts. Maybe you're like, wow, this is a great idea, but I know there's no way I'm going to do this myself. That's totally okay too. You can email me or click yes and ask us those questions. Sometimes people click yes, and then as soon as we call them, they're like, actually, I have no interest in that. I just want to know what it's like to work with you. You can do that, or you can just connect with us directly with our contact information that will be back on the screen. Awesome. We'll go ahead and get this poll closed out. Do see several questions in our chat panel here, so let's get to those questions. All right, so get our Q&A slide up. There we go. My contact information is up on the screen. All right, just a couple questions here, and if you have one, feel free to put that in the chat panel. Question from Kyla: is it better to write about upcoming specific events or about evergreen activities, or a combination? That's a great question, Kyla. I would say both, right? We want to write about evergreen activities. We just had a conversation with a customer about their 4th of July blog. Got thousands and thousands of visits to their 4th of July blog. They sold out for 4th of July. That's awesome. They're like, what do we do with it now? And it's like, well, we'll go back and we will update that. So it's kind of an evergreen piece of content that we have to remember to go back and update. So nobody's searching for the 4th of July right now. So traffic for that blog has fallen off a cliff, of course, because it was just over. But, 6 months out, people are going to start searching for that, or whatever. We study when people are searching, so we'll know that, but we'll update that blog with the latest information as soon as we can. So we want to keep it as evergreen as we can, so it's less work to update it later. But upcoming events that aren't evergreen are great opportunities to create content too. So Both of those would be the answer to your question there. Knowing, of course, that your long-term ROI is going to be higher on something that's more evergreen. Great question, though. Question from Diego. Do you offer services for just the blog, or is it compiled with a full Compass integrated service? That's a question we'd be happy to address for you, Diego. Typically, we really want to understand your business, what your needs are, how to do that effectively. I don't think we have any customers that only do their blog with us, because typically, to make it work, there's a lot more that goes into the overall success of that. But it's a conversation we'd be happy to have with you. But really coming at that from like helping us understand and you understand what are your goals we're trying to accomplish, because blogging may or may not be the right thing to accomplish those goals. But let's look at what your business goals are first. Let's look at how your current strategy is working to perform against those goals. And then we may have other suggestions, and we may or may not even recommend content creation based on what your goals are that you're trying to accomplish. So I shared that more to kind of get people thinking about how do you line up your marketing to your goals and some of those things more so than just your specific question, Diego. But hopefully that was helpful for everybody as you're thinking about it. But if you have questions about do we offer this service or do we do that, please do get in touch. My contact information is on the screen, and we're happy to look at that with you and help you understand what's the right strategy for you to be using and how do you need to go about that, and how well are you already performing in other areas that may be important for us to drive the kind of success we want to see from a content creation perspective. So I hope that was helpful. That was actually all of the questions in our chat panel today. So either I've totally overwhelmed you or I've answered every question you might possibly have. Either way, thank you for attending. We will get a copy of the recording out. If you didn't get a chance to vote in the poll because you stepped away or whatever, to request the free content evaluation of your site, you can get in touch with me directly. The contact information on our screen, and we'll be happy to follow up with you and get some time scheduled to do that. So thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for our next webinar, which we'll be getting some information out on here shortly. And we look forward to seeing you there.